It's proud to be here today to talk to you. Just a little bit information about the company. We're a packaging company, so roughly estimated we started in 1985, about 40 years ago. It's always hard for me because when I start speeches like this, I'm talking about stainless steel. And something that's not sexy is stainless steel. In the last 5 years, we've done a lot of projects in the US market and things have been changing also for us. Instead of selling equipment, selling packaging machinery, selling complete projects, we're selling sustainability. Sustainability is something that has been going on for us in Europe for a long time already, of course, and we see it more and more in the US market. So what has changed also for us? Instead of being only an integrator of stainless steel, of food-safe products, we're looking to sustainable solutions. Why is that important? Because it changes the way you pack stuff, it changes the way you bring things to retailers, it changes the way you have to talk to consumers and to customers at the end line. So as you can see, and you notice in Europe already, we've done a lot like with paper packs. We're trying out with paper materials, we're trying out with cardboard materials, and you see this coming up more and more. The main difference we see at different countries is like the way we recycle stuff. So do we understand how products work? Do we understand how to recycle? To give you examples, we see products in the market that are cardboard with a plastic top to, for example. We have to change it. One piece goes into cardboard recycling, one piece goes into the plastic recycling. It's very hard. So what makes it different for us? It's when we do fully integrated packaging lines, we're not only going to look at the products or the equipment we are using, we're also going to look, okay, what's going to be the future? Because we saw that in many companies they were looking, okay, we want to do a tray line, let's buy a tray line, and then within 1 or 2 years they decided to go to a cardboard solution and we're not able to do it. So what is JASA Packaging Systems? To give you a small introduction, we are an innovator, an integrator, and we look into sustainability. To give you an idea, roughly 20% of our company nowadays is doing R&D. We have our own printer for printing packaging samples to our customers that we never did before, if you look back in 5 years. We have a team working on sustainable solutions. We have a team looking at robots. How can we use more robots in the system to make it easier to pack stuff? I first want to take you back to Europe to some samples in the produce world before we go to Leafy greens, because Leafy greens is an interesting part if you look to sustainability. In the produce world, especially in Europe, you can see right behind me, there are different solutions already on cardboard. So if you look at the Buciterol, the apple packaging, this is something we developed together with our customer. So instead of our customer going to supplier of materials, we went into the conversation and told them, okay, listen, you need a solution, you need no plastic anymore, we need to go sustainable. That's nice, but how are we going to automate? Because they had such a high output that they already knew if they don't automate the system, they would have a lot of manual labor, which was not interesting to them. So we went to the supplier and said, okay, what is possible, what can we do? We know we can denest trays, we know we can transport trays, but we need to get a cardboard sleeve around it. So we start developing, we start thinking, and about 7 years ago, we developed our first sleever equipment, which make it possible for the customer to pack things into a cardboard tray. And from that day on, a lot of things have changed, because we start doing this for tomatoes, we start doing this for grapes, we start doing this for even cherries. And the beautiful of this packaging is you are able to have different designs. And as you can see, for example, the cherry packaging is like a little basket in the grass, which makes it possible for you to give a more look and feel for it, and it's still sustainable. The hard thing about this is it's still a discussion about, okay, how do we process this? Because for some products, and we'll get back to that later, you need like a seal, or it's still like, if you look at strawberries, for example, if you look at leafy greens, there's still a sort of moisture in there. For example, we did a test for one of the retailers from Washington State to New York State to see what happened in the trucks. And we noticed that you need a specific sort of cardboard to get the solution you needed to. Why is it important to us? Because we need to be there too, because the thickness of the cardboard is also an automation issue, an automation discussion. Because the way you're gonna denest the cardboard trays, the way you're gonna denest the sleeves is a different sort of way you do with like smaller piece of cardboard. So we noticed, okay, this is important to us, this is very, we need to get more knowledge about it. So again, we start talking, we start doing tests, and we see that if you go there, that it's very important to talk to all the parties that belong to there. It took us about, I think, 2 years before we were able to get this like really on the market and really get it fully automized. So imagine it takes time. Important is be on time and make sure you talk to all the parties. Interesting part. So if we look at the current market, we see still a lot of clamshells in the market, and we still see a lot of plastic in the market. I don't want to say plastic is a bad thing, because that's still an open discussion, but what we can do, we can reduce what we have right here, because for some products we still do need plastic, because it's hard to pack in paper, it's hard to transport it in paper because of the moisture and other issues. So to give you a little bit of an idea, if you look, for example, the difference between a clamshell or a top seal, it's a big reduction in plastic, it's a big reduction in weight, but it's also a big reduction in storage. You can imagine if you have to store like lids or like bigger products or clamshells in your warehouse, it takes up a lot of space. You can see the difference here between the film you need for the 9,000 plus trays or the lids you need in the boxes for trays. That's another thing we look with, not only looking at the materials, we also look, okay, what do you need? What do you need to store? What do you need the transportation for? Because it's also fuel costs these days. I think you all know how expensive fuel is right now. It's also transportation costs. I mean, even for us, it's hard to find a container. It's hard to find a trucker who brings everything to your storage. So that's another important thing. So more these days, we see packaging with these materials. What I really like about this picture is the strawberry packaging. So currently we are developing together with our partners for top seal equipment, looking at top sealing cardboard trays. So again, we did some tests for strawberries, and for example, strawberries are very important to cool them correctly, to make sure the airflow during the transportation is correct. These are all things these days are part of automation. So we're not only looking at machinery, we're looking at the whole system. Is your box ready for the cooling of your packaging? Is your packaging correctly sized to make sure that the airflow is correct? All those things together will make sure that your product comes to the supermarket or the retailer the right way. Vertical bag. So this is a very interesting one. 2 years ago on the PMA we launched our Back to Paper. Back to Paper is a fully paper solution, and there's no plastic anymore inside. So the way we seal this is we use a food safe graded label. So instead of using a heat seal, which we used to see at the common plastic bags, we just use a pressure unit who presses the labels together, and that's it. These bags are able to hold up to 3 to 4 pounds, a little bit depending on the product, and it's fully recyclable. The main discussion always is like the type of paper. It differs a little bit per state or per country what you can call recyclable, but we have a white paper on that which tells you the differences and which tells you a little bit more about, okay, how does this work for my area. The nice thing about it, it's fully recyclable, so you can put it with the paper waste, which is fine. But this brings us to the current issue we are working on. Leafy greens. A little bit of, it is a sort of a dry product, but we still see some moisture there, and we call it a wet product for packaging materials. We did several tests, and we're very proud to mention that currently we have, and you can see it in the middle, one of the bags that is a paper bag for leafy greens. Currently this bag is able to, for purchase in France, because France has decided to get rid of all the plastic materials since this year. It's a new rule, and we see the same going on in Canada, for example. And probably we see this coming also for the United States. So they needed to make a decision. So there are different companies we work together with who developed a bag with a special barrier which makes it possible for you to put leafy greens in a paper bag. The main issue we see for the US market, to give you an idea, is that the consumer still wants to see the product. We're still used, if you go to a supermarket and you look to the consumers right there, and I do it every week, it's nice to see, just look at people what they do when they buy strawberries, when they buy a salad or whatever. You pick it up, you look at the bottom to make sure there's nothing like rotten there or whatever, and you pick another one. If you compare this to Europe, for example, we are used, if you go to the supermarket, if we buy a product right there, 9 out of 10 times the product is mostly just good quality. This makes it hard for us to introduce this in the US. But even in the French, they made a solution for that. To give you an idea about this packaging behind me, they put a QR code on the back that when you open the bag and you're not happy with the product inside, you scan the QR code and you get your money back, as easy as it is. So these are things we're trying to convince retailers, we're trying to convince growers also to think about it. Like, it's a big change, it's a big decision, but still you're looking at sustainability and you're looking at the new world. You have to get ready for it. Honestly, it takes a long time. To give you an idea, we've been marketing the paper trays you just saw behind me in the last slide for 4 years now in the US. And now, this year, slowly we see that they're launching those products, for example, on shows like here, on the PMA, that they will start it, so it takes time. But that's the main difference. We are here to help you with that. So instead of just informing you about, okay, how does your machine park look like, how is it going to be automation, we want to help you in these solutions. So how does it look like in the end? Different solutions. What you see behind me, for example, is a tray line, and what's the way different? This tray line is designed to do plastic trays as we know them right now in the market, but we can also do the specific cardboard trays on them. So as soon as you design a plastic tray, for example, we talk to you and say, okay, what's your future going to look like? What's your plans? What are you going to do? And on that base scenario, we're going to talk to you about, okay, what you're going to need to do that, how you're going to be ready for the future, and we're going to integrate a part of it later or on the same day to make sure that you are ready for the future and that you can do your sustainable part already in that. For example, this is a selection with a special meal kit line. So in the middle you see 4 employees who are able to put microgreens or to put other products into the tray, for example. This exactly is sort of the same setup, but this is with a dual setup. So what we also do, if you look at sustainability, we look, okay, what actually do you need to get there? So instead of just selling you a part of equipment and just say, okay, this is nice, you can run now trays. No, we look with you, okay, this is your building, give the drawing of the building. You need to have a high care area. So how can we make that sustainable? To make sure that we use the smallest space in your facility that you need to cool down, because the packaging area needs to cool down to about 4 degrees. But as you all know, energy is getting more expensive. So we look at the packaging, but you also look at your area. How about lighting? How about LED? How about giving your space as small as possible to make sure that you're not cooling your whole facility, which is unnecessary. Part of the deal. This is a nice example. So here you can see that we were looking into the fact we do a difference between a high care and medium care area. You see the little green ball right there. That's something, for example, we advise to you. It's like you don't have to cool down. You split it right there. You just cool down the packaging part, and behind that, as soon as you go, for example, to metal detection, X-ray detection, you can go to an area where it's a little bit different temperature and you're close to the cooling chamber, or you have a different setup, so we can help you right there to make sure you make the right decisions in that. Small one, sort of the same. And this is the big example. What we also did is like the full layout. So instead of just advising you like, okay, this is your packaging area, very nice, we bring you back to what you're going to do with processing. I mean, you're going to wash, you're going to dry, how much energy costs it. We have all that information, but also what you're going to do with palletizing, where you're going to put it, what are the costs. So we want to work with you to do a full capex on that. So instead of being just saying this is your part of equipment, we're going to help you in the whole system. So we're going to look with you, okay, what sort of materials you're going to use, what you want to do in the future, what you're going to do with energy, how's your building look like, to make sure that from the beginning on, which is very important, as soon as you start building with the greenhouse, actually as soon as you start talking to someone who's going to build your greenhouse, we're going to help them, we're going to help you to make sure to make the right decisions. One of the examples to show you also the way we work, so it's only stainless steel. And the way we look also how you clean. As you can see in the sample behind me, you can see there are beams, for example, they are tilted a little bit. We're making sure that your water flow is correct, and we're also going to advise you on, okay, where's it going to be your water connection, how's it going to look like, and what you're going to do with your wastewater, where your gutter is going to be, where your wastewater is going to be. Also, a lot of important questions you need to know before you start building your equipment. I'm pretty much through my time, but I just want to just tell you one more thing. Yeah, I'm almost done, sorry. Important for you to, this was actually in a nutshell, so 50 minutes for me is very short to tell you the whole story. So I would love you to come by at our booth and you can ask me anything about sustainable packaging I can help you with. But I also would advise you to download our ebook. We developed this last year on several requests to give you an idea what the possibilities are and what you can do. It will tell you more about automation, but also the different steps of automation. If you have any question, please feel free to come by. And thank you very much.